Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Green Bay Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. It is January 22nd. We went live a little bit earlier. It's at 7 a.m. Central Time. Could not wait to hop in here and talk all things Packers. I know we already got people filing into the chat. Appreciate everybody jumping in. On tap this morning, Packers DC interview. We got another one scheduled with a former Green Bay Packer, actually a Green Bay Packer Hall of Famer. Really excited to dive into this one. You guys know, if you follow the show consistently, my wife is over the moon about this. Showed her the tweet last night at dinner, and she lost her mind at the dinner table. So we'll talk about that. Also, we're going to give you the latest on the coaching carousel trickle-down effect. What do we mean by that? There's a lot of things kind of in flux right now. You know, you hear about the Brian Flores information coming out that the Vikings and him have agreed to terms on a new contract for him to be their defensive coordinator moving forward, right? Obviously, he's got several head coaching jobs he's still trying to get. We'll talk about, if he gets a head coaching job, how that might change how the Packers approach hiring their next DC. Same thing like within Denver. You know, there's a lot of different things. Like if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, then will that take Jim Leonard out of the sweepstakes? We can't even interview Jim Leonard yet, right? Because they're still playing in the playoffs. So there's a lot of things that come into play here. We're going to talk about the entire coaching carousel as well. But before we do, if you guys would do that YouTube stuff for me, hit like, hit subscribe. If this is your first time tuning into PTA, welcome. Thank you for making us a part of your morning. We're not experts. We are not insiders. We are not media members. We're fans just like you, talking Packers on a daily basis. So if you're looking for that type of content, make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. And, we greatly appreciate you, like I said, hopping in here this morning on such an early basis. As Jonathan says here in the chat, y'all some diehard Packer fans if y'all are in here at 8 a.m. LOL. Man, it never ends on this channel. You never know when we'll go live. And that's why it's important to have that bell icon clicked if you want to be a part of the live stream as well. Obviously, we will edit out each segment, trying to make it as convenient as possible for everyone. Like if you're like me and you got a busy schedule, it's hard to find time to sit through a whole live stream, right? So what I like to do is some of my favorite channels on YouTube that I support, I love going through, and they'll have, 10-minute videos, 15-minute videos. So we'll be able to get you the information, the news, the notes, all that stuff in rapid fashion so you can go on about your day. Because I know everybody's got families, got jobs, got things to do, but there's nothing better than hanging out with you guys and gals on a live stream, that's for sure. So appreciate you jumping in here, Jonathan. Good to see you in here. Everybody that's on live right now, do me a favor, spin those laces, hit that like button. We would greatly appreciate it. All right, let's waste no time. Let's get into it. The news of the day broke a little bit late last night. Like I said, I was out at dinner. I thought about going live when we got home. And I said, you know what? Let's sleep on it. And I'm glad we did, man. I'm even more excited about this potential hire here at DC. Now, you guys know I've been very vocal on this channel, though. He's not my top choice. I don't want to be misleading at all. If he was not a former Green Bay Packer, he definitely wouldn't be in my top 5. But there's just something romantic. There's something exciting about the thought of Al Harris patrolling that sideline with Matt LaFleur as the defensive coordinator for your Green Bay Packers. I mean, I think we would all agree, a guy who had a lot of success, went into the Packer Hall of Fame, gave us some of the most exciting moments in Green Bay Packer history. But again, if he were to be the DC, you got to look at the pros, you got to look at the cons. As we say on this show all the time, if you see it, you got to say it. We try to remove our bias. It's impossible to do that as a Packer fan, right? But we try to give you our honest assessment. So Adam Schefter tweeted out, Packers interviewed, in past tense, interviewed defensive backs coach Al Harris today for their defense coordinator job. So this isn't one that's scheduled. It's on the books. They're still got to talk. Maybe it'll get canceled. This has already taken place. So that puts your current interview list at Christian Parker, defensive passing game coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, Durante Jones from the Minnesota Vikings. That's important for the coaching carousel segment we're going to do. Keep that in mind. All right. Jonathan Gannon, who was the former head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, also the former DC a few years ago with Philadelphia. And now you've got Al Harris, former Green Bay Packer Hall of Famer, former DB coach for the Chicago Bears this year. Not former, but still is, obviously. So I want to give a shout out to Chris over on X. If you guys are not following him, he's a great follow. It's at C Coles, at SeeColes. He said, the Bears coaching staff member he is speaking of, as you can see here, Greg Braggs Jr. tweeted out from, I guess he's a Chicago Bears fan, maybe an NFL guy. I don't know. Never heard of him. Shout out to him, though. He said, it's weird that all these teams, including the Packers, want to interview the Bears coaching staff when they don't realize that their success was actually all luck, according to Twitter. And then, of course, Chris tweets out and says, the Bears coaching staff member he is speaking of. So this isn't just like, oh, man, Bears fans have convinced themselves that their defensive staff was just unbelievable. Their defense was great this year. If you didn't have the takeaways, boy, oh boy, and mark my words, watch next year what happens. Same thing that happened to Green Bay this year. It's so hard to consistently get that many takeaways, right? I'm not saying it's fluky, but to sit here and pretend like that's all skill, that's all coaching, we've seen it this year. We've seen the ball bounce, just like it bounced our way last year quite a bit, right? So, and that's why we put so much emphasis as well on taking the ball away too. So now I'm going to play a clip here, guys. If the stream goes down, it should come back up. It may trigger a copyright that we're allowed to use. You guys know the deal. But why do Green Bay Packer fans absolutely love and adore Al Harris? This is usually the first moment they think about. Now, you may be new here, okay? You may be a new Packer fan. You may be a Packer fan that's, 18, 19 years old watching the channel. It's awesome. We got people in their 70s that watch the show. Right. We're talking about OG Packer fans from back in the day. I'm talking about, supporting and following the Green Bay Packers when they were at their lowest through the 70s and 80s. We got some of the most diehard fans. If you're hearing my voice and you're one of those, let me know in the comments when you're watching this back. We greatly, greatly appreciate everything that you all did as a fan base to kind of hold that flag up in some of the darkest times. But some of the younger fans may not know who Al Harris is. This was right about the time that I became a Packer fan. You guys know, I grew up a big college football fan. My brother was a big Steelers fan, so I found myself kind of rooting for them. Didn't really have a pro team. And then it was in 2002, 2003, I started studying up on the NFL, learned about the Green Bay Packers, went to Lambeau one time, fell in love, been a Packer fan ever since. This was right around that time, as this was the 2003 wild card round Packers Seahawks matchup. Now, I want to say this. We're going to play this, and it's going to be kind of hard to hear if this is your first time listening to it on the podcast. You don't know what the heck I'm talking about. They're at the coin toss in overtime. Keep in mind, back then it's sudden death. Matt Hasselbeck comes up, and he says they win the toss, and he's going to say, we want the ball, and we're going to score. And he's grinning and everything, right? You can hear the announcers laugh. And then, of course, just a few seconds later, Al Harris happens. Here we go.
Heads is called.
Hasselbeck maybe changing the play at the line. Looks left and right. Takes the snap. Short drop. Quick throw. Left side. Intercepted. Down the right sideline. Going down the right sideline to the end zone. It is Al Harris. Touchdown. Dagger. Al Harris. 56 yards.
So there you go. That's why we love Al Harris. And Al Harris, if you're wondering, guys, the thing that I remember about that, I'm trying to think of who the DC was at the time. Oh, Donatello. I could be wrong. It's a guy I think that actually came from Philly, but you guys do your own research there. Al Harris played a lot of press man coverage. That was his specialty. Man, he had long arms. He was kind of a long cornerback. He could really press at the line of scrimmage and work his way back downfield in transition. We've heard Mark Tauscher talk about how good of a teammate he was. He was one of those guys, when he spoke up, people listened. We heard A.J. Hawk talk. It's just a ton of people talk about the type of teammate that Al Harris was. So beloved in the Packer community, obviously. Let's dive into the details, though. Let's try to, guys, for a second. Remove the bias. I'm speaking to myself here. Remove the fact that he's a Packer Hall of Famer. Is he the right candidate for the job? Okay. We got to try to determine that here. So obviously a legendary figure in Green Bay Packers history, and is currently a high-profile candidate for the defensive coordinator vacancies. He interviewed for the Packers opening on Thursday, January 22nd, bringing a resume that includes 15 years as an NFL player, huge part of the resume, and over a decade of coaching experience. Below is a chronological breakdown of his coaching career. So let's go through his coaching career. Well, we got to start with his playing career. He came in the league in 1993. Okay. Harris was known for his bump and run press coverage style, becoming one of the most respected cornerbacks of his era. In college, from 93 to 96, he played 2 seasons at Trinity Valley Community College, winning a national championship in 94. He transferred to Texas A&M Kingsville, where he was a 2-year starter and first-team All-Lone Star Conference selection in 1996. So he goes to the NFL starting in 97. He was drafted in the 6th round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, spent the season on their practice squad. This is a guy who had to work his ass off every step of the way to climb the ladder to get to where he got with the Green Bay Packers and obviously being inducted in the Packer Hall of Fame. So practice squad, then 1998 to 2002, he played for the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Eagles picked him up primarily as a standout nickel cornerback. So he kind of emerged as a nickelback. And keep in mind, back then, guys, you didn't play near as much nickel defense. It was, a good chunk of base. Probably still played a little more nickel, but this was around that time that everything transitioned with the NFL, where your nickel sets, your 3 wide receiver sets, they became a little more prevalent or a little more common, I guess you could say. 03 to 09, he played for the Green Bay Packers. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler in 07 and 08, an AP second-team All-Pro in 2007. He famously recorded a game-winning walk-off interception return for a touchdown in the 2003 wildcard playoff game against Seattle, the one we just played, obviously. In 2010 and 2011, concluded his career with stints for the Miami Dolphins and the St. Louis Rams as well. So he tried to hold on a little bit longer after the Packers let him go. I think he had a knee injury as well. I think he tore his ACL. I could be wrong. But, yeah, accolades obviously inducted into the Packer Hall of Fame in the class of 2020. All right, up next, coaching career, the early years, starting in 2012. So he immediately got into coaching, right? Harris transitioned immediately into coaching, focusing on development of elite secondary play. He was with the Miami Dolphins in 2012, began his coaching path as a coaching intern, so kind of got his feet wet. Kansas City Chiefs from 13 to 18, served as an assistant secondary coach and later the secondary / cornerbacks coach. During this time, he was instrumental in the development of All-Pro Marcus Peters. Again, we're looking for players that might be attached to specific position groups that these coaches are specifically attached to, right? Florida Atlantic. So he goes to Florida Atlantic in 2019, served as the defensive assistant under Lane Kiffin. All right. Now, coming back to the NFL, coaching career coordinator path from 2020 to the present. In recent years, Harris has become one of the most sought-after defensive assistants in the league. With the Dallas Cowboys in 2020 to 2024, he served as defensive backs coach with an added title of assistant head coach in 2024. Under his mentorship, Trayvon Diggs, sound familiar? Had 11 interceptions in 2021, and Deron Bland, an NFL record 5 pick sixes in 2023, earned All-Pro honors. That is not a coincidence, right? That is not a coincidence that we just showed you the clip of what made Al Harris famous. Aggressive press man and jumping that curl route underneath, right? Looked a little hot, might have been a hot read, looked like a curl as well. So you guys, whatever you think it is. But the fact that this guy, that's what he was known for, that aggressive style in the NFL. And then he goes to Dallas, and Trayvon Diggs gets 11 interceptions. Deron Bland gets NFL record 5 pick sixes in 2023. Pretty impressive, right? And earned All-Pro honors that year as well. Now, keep in mind, we may bring back Trayvon Diggs. He's going to be an open free agent, unrestricted free agent as it sits right now. We'll see how that unfolds. I think the Packers want him to bring his best offer from free agency. And that's going to be something we're going to watch real close in the offseason, because I wonder what his market's going to be like. I really, really do. Most people think he's not worth anything. There's others that would be willing to overpay him. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be very, very interesting. But again, he's got ties to Al Harris, and Trayvon Diggs has also got ties to Micah Parsons. Well, keep in mind that Al Harris spent time in Dallas with Micah Parsons as well. Pressure, pick, coverage, sack, it all goes together. All right. Now, from 2021 to 2024, his secondary led the NFL in total interceptions with 72. All right. So that is something. And then he goes to the Chicago Bears, and what happens, right? Keep that in mind. Again, their defense was cheeks last year outside of the turnovers, but it seems like Al Harris had a lot to do with the turnovers, right? In the 2025 season, his unit led the NFL in interceptions with 23, and he helped safety Kevin Byard lead the league individually with 7 picks. How many players is he going to coach? How many defensive backs is he going to coach that are going to lead the league in interceptions? There's one there's one common theme here, right? It's Al Harris is coaching these guys at different stops that's getting all these interceptions. We know turnovers are a huge, huge deal. It is. What if you've already got the coaching staff in place to, if Hafley doesn't pick us clean, doesn't pick the bone clean, what if we got a lot of guys in place already and Al Harris can come in and help shore up the turnovers? And again, I'm kind of speaking the case for Al right now, right? We're going to talk about the negatives in a second as well. Let's just talk about right now. What were the Bears' defensive rankings? We told you turnovers is Al Harris's key strength, right? All right. Here are their rankings last year for the Bears defense. Scoring, points per play allowed, they finished 21st in the league, guys. 21st, tied for 21st with Buffalo at .394. Not a good look, Bob. Not a good look at all. Now, down the stretch, the last 3 games, only .301. So they were playing their best football defensively probably all year long down the stretch. So had they turned the corner, we'll see next year in week 1, right? Whether Al Harris is there or not, we'll see if that defense can keep that up. If you take that .301 and put it in the left column, guys, that would put them ranked 3rd best scoring defense in the league. It doesn't necessarily mean it was during that last 3, but what I like to do is take that and compare it. Let me zoom in a little bit. I apologize. You guys probably having a hard time hearing this here. Or seeing this, I'm sorry. So when you look at that, the point is, if you take that .301 that they had here in the last 3 games, that would put them toward the top of the league. So that's important. You're only as good as some of the last games you played / coaches, right? Total defensive yards per play allowed. So this is on a per play basis. How many yards are they averaging giving up when the offense runs a play? How many are they giving up? Chicago finished 29th with 5.9 yards per play allowed. That's bad. It's really, really bad. Now, again, looking at the last 3 games, it improved to 5.5. That would have put them somewhere in the 20 range. So still not ideal. And when you look at Green Bay, they were tied for 7th best in this metric, okay? And when you go back to scoring, Green Bay was sitting in the 10th spot. So we had a legit top 10 defense last year under Jeff Hafley, although it did struggle down the stretch. What you have is Chicago had a bad year overall defensively. Green Bay had a good year. And then right down the stretch, Chicago improved and Green Bay's, declined, if you will. So that is an important thing to take into consideration here. All right. Passing defense. Again, Chicago 25th at 7.1 yards per pass attempt. Green Bay finished in passing defense tied for 7th best. Now, moving along to run defense. Again, secondary coaches play the run fit as well, right? They've got to make sure they got all the resources they need to play their cover 6, to play their cover 4, to play their buzz, to play their man covers, their cover 1, their zero looks, all that stuff, right? But you've also got to make sure you've got the proper resources allocated to the run fit to stop the run. So these do go hand in hand, although I think we would agree the secondary coach isn't as focused on run game coordination. Usually they have a defensive line coach that's in charge of the run game coordination, which will kind of take his guys and then pass the information along to the secondary and vice versa, right? You see that a lot across the league. That's kind of become the new common thing is, you got offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators, but you also got run game coordinators and pass game coordinators as well. So run defense, yards per carry allowed, Chicago finished 29th. Yuck. 4.9 yards per carry allowed. Again, coming down the stretch, 4.1. That 4.1 would have put them 10th best. But on the year, Chicago finished 29th. Green Bay ended up finishing 11th, but down the stretch, we're giving up 4.8 yards per rush attempt. That 4.8 will put them just above the 29 spot. So again, it's like 2 ships passing in the night here. And here's the big takeaway stat, the key stat that Al Harris, obviously, and these Chicago Bears defense were really, really good at. They were 3rd in takeaways, averaging 1.7 takeaways per game. Now, you immediately go, how many of those are fumbles? How many of those are interceptions? We already talked about it a little bit. When you dive into it, interceptions, Chicago was 2nd. This is opponents' interceptions thrown percentage, okay? 3.70%. Only Jesse Minter and the LA Chargers had a higher one at 3.74%. So they were taking the ball away by picking it off, just like they did when Al Harris was in Dallas. So you're seeing that follow him every single step of his coaching career. So again, where did Green Bay finish in takeaways? Green Bay ended up finishing 25th in takeaways. That's bad, guys. That's really, really bad, especially seeing that we implemented the ball king and everybody was all excited about the ball king in training camp, right? Now, where did Green Bay finish in interception percentage? 27. So when you look at the stats, if you were to remove everything about Al Harris being a Green Bay Packer, right, what we're coming away with is if everything held true and these numbers carried with him from Chicago, right, you're going to see the overall defensive numbers dip pretty dramatically, right? And you're going to see the takeaways skyrocket. Now, takeaways are the most important stat in football, in my opinion. Turnovers are, right? Protecting the football and taking the ball away, but not to the tune of where there's like a 20-team difference because everything else is going to dip. However, as we pointed out, in the last 3 games of the season, that Chicago Bears defense had really turned the corner. So is that the version of Al Harris you'd be getting at DC? Only time will tell if you end up making the hire. The interview, I'm interested to see how the interviewing process went. The other thing to think about here too, Jeff Hafley is going to pick us clean a little bit, right? Well, one of the opportunities we would get if we do go with Al Harris will be able to bring some defensive assistance from what's his name? Dennis Allen's defense in Chicago. He's the DC there, right? So Al Harris could poach a little bit there, and also you're going to get a nice little inside look, a little inside information, inside trading, if you will, of how Chicago Bears defense actually operates. So that's another aspect of this as well. That's something that Matt LaFleur's had to deal with for a while. People poaching his coordinators constantly, right? And you guys remember going into last year, I said that about Dan Campbell. So we're going to find out just how good Dan Campbell is now that his coaching staff got picked apart like Matt LaFleur's has been getting picked apart since 2019. And what happened? You've seen the Lions decline, right? Because they had trouble replacing, what's his name? Aaron Glenn. They ended up getting the head coaching job with the Jets. They had trouble replacing Ben Johnson at OC. As a matter of fact, I think they end up firing their OC or having him step down, and Dan Campbell ended up having to call the plays. So, again, that's just something that's constantly happening in the league. If Chicago has another great year, their coaching staff is probably going to get picked apart on the offensive side, and then Ben Johnson will be dealing with that next year, right? Let's hope it doesn't get to that. Let's hope they just fall on their face in year 2 of the scheme and we continue moving along. But again, that's how everything works. So Chicago Bears 2025 scheme, one last look. What did they do schematically? And again, when you look at the EPA per dropback, it actually was a lot better than their overall numbers. It was a positive 0.08. So that puts them somewhere around, if I had to guess here, middle of the pack, right? Probably about 15th, somewhere around there is where they were ranked with a 0.08 EPA per dropback. What coverages they run? Cover 3, 30% of the time. Cover 2, 23% of the time. They ran cover 1 man 18% of the time. They ran cover 4 11% of the time. Goose blitz, cover 0 5% of the time. Cover 2 man 4% of the time. And cover 6 3% of the time. So you would be shifting from what we did last year. If you look at our numbers here, 32% of the time we were playing cover 3. That would most likely still be the majority of what you call. They were just slightly less at 30%. The biggest difference would be our second most called defensive call was cover 2, and the Bears' second most called coverage was actually cover 2. So no big difference there. I'm trying to look at some of the anomalies here, like what really sticks out. I think the big thing that sticks out is he only ran 3% cover 6, and we ran it 16% of the time. So that's your biggest difference. A lot less cover 6 and a little bit more cover 3, although it would be your primary defensive call. So that's kind of a quick look at Al Harris. So if you guys are watching this video back later, let me know in the comments, how do you feel about Al Harris being the Packers' new DC if they decide to hire him? Would you be on board with it? Would you go, Clayton, man, I got to remove my bias. I love that he's a Packer Hall of Famer, but man, yeah, the takeaways are great. The interceptions are great, but boy, oh boy, the rest of it was cheeks most of the year. Completely understand that. Let us know in the comments how you feel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on future live streams. And also, if you don't have an opinion, hey, just appreciate the content, hit us with a Go Pack Go in there. And you know what? If you're a Chicago Bear fan, let us know in the comments too. I'm sure there's people over at Pekin. They've been stalking me on X. It's been hilarious, man. So it is amazing again how they think we're stealing people from them, or we're look at them copying us, bro. You went and got a Packer Hall of Famer to try to help fix your defense. Calm down. But you guys are welcome in here as long as you're respectful. I promise you that. So again, appreciate everybody tuning in on that video there. We will see you guys on the next one. All right, let's move along, guys. Let me make sure we don't have any super chats yet. We're good. Okay. Yeah, if you guys get any super chats in, I promise I will hit them at the end. Okay, I will not neglect them. I'm trying to get better at checking those and not missing them. All right, coaching carousel trickle down. This is something I wanted to hit on real quick. Okay, it's important to keep our finger on the pulse. Some people are going, when are these hires going to happen? Hey, man, it's gotten to the point where you're kind of waiting for these last 4 teams to get eliminated, the season to wrap up, to see who people truly have an opportunity to hire. So what I'm going to do is kind of give you a quick rundown of some of the betting odds on where these guys may end up landing on what team. Okay, so keep in mind, just a quick refresher. We did a vote yesterday and everything. We're not going to do a poll on this one, but we may later on an afternoon show. We kind of, my opinion, I felt like Christian Parker and Brian Flores will be my top 2 picks so far. Looking at Al Harris, although it would be really, really fun, that would not change my pick. It would still be top choice Christian Parker, Brian Flores. The problem is Brian Flores, something's been signaled with Brian Flores here, and we kind of expected this, okay? This isn't going to catch us off guard, obviously. This is something that we all somewhat expected the Vikings to do, and rightfully so. So when you look at the head coach tracker, all right, here's how it sits right now. And this was tweeted out by CBS Sports is where this graphic came from. So Kevin Stefanski is your new head coach in Atlanta, all right? Which, by the way, him and Baker Mayfield taking shots at him on social media. The fact that Baker has a lot of hard feelings toward Kevin Stefanski and how he treated him in Cleveland, and now they're in the same division, that's going to be a fun rivalry to watch. Baker always bringing a little bit of edge to the any team he's played for, to be honest with you. All the way back to Oklahoma when he did the you-know-what on the sideline. People are going, what are you talking about, Clayton? Just type in Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma sideline, and make sure the kids aren't watching, okay? Jeff Hafley is the new head coach in Miami. We're still waiting for those assistants to fall into place, right? You've got John Harbaugh, Mr. $100 million man up there with the New York Giants, okay? So he's the new head coach with the Giants. You got Robert Saleh. They're finalizing the deal, but it sounds like he's going to be the new head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Something would have to fall apart, dramatically there for that not to happen. So again, Stefanski in Atlanta, Hafley in Miami, you got Harbaugh with the Giants, and you got Saleh with the Titans. So the Vikings signal bidding war on Flores. There's people that look at this and say, oh, now we don't have a chance to get Flores. That's not necessarily the case, although it is highly unlikely. Let me explain. Adam Schefter tweeted out, defensive coordinator Brian Flores has signed a contract extension with the Vikings. If he does not receive a head coaching job this cycle, he will be back as the team's defensive coordinator. That sounds pretty finalized, doesn't it? I heard some stuff behind the scenes that he could still back out of that. Now, when you hear signed, boy, that sounds like that's a done deal. I'm going to go ahead and say remove Brian Flores from the list, okay? Just to kind of not get our hopes up, right? Now, he could still get a head coaching job somewhere, and that could trigger something with one of our choices, Durante Jones out of Minnesota, passing game coordinator. I imagine that if Brian Flores does get a head coaching job somewhere, that Durante Jones would probably be their top choice, if not a top 3 choice, to promote him to DC. So that's how this kind of plays in. It's highly unlikely, highly unlikely, especially with this tweet coming out. Because to me, this was a signal like, hey, don't even think about it, guys. We will outbid everyone. Brian Flores is our guy, right? We've already signed the deal type thing. Now, Adam Schefter typically gets information from the coach's agent. So maybe that was Brian Flores truly confirming, like, I'm definitely coming back in Minnesota. Don't even try it if another team wants to have him as their DC if he doesn't get a head coaching job. However, let's talk about how all this comes into play, all right? Because we still got how many vacant head coaching jobs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs, right? So let's talk about the leading candidates for these according to the betting market. So I combed through 3 different AI social or AI sites, had them compile a bunch of information. So you guys may see on one gambling site, this is the favorite, on the other it's not. This is kind of compilation of all that, okay? Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. We got to go pretty fast here because we got a lot of information. Arizona Cardinals ownership is reportedly leaning towards familiarity and defensive stability after the Jonathan Gannon era. Okay, I guess they haven't had enough of having a defensive-minded head coach yet. You guys know how I feel about that. So Vance Joseph to Arizona could trigger Jim Leonhard staying in Denver. Just like we talked about, if Brian Flores gets a head coaching job somewhere, Durante Jones, one of our top choices, would probably be promoted to DC and Minnesota to keep him in place. Same thing applies with Jim Leonhard in Denver. Vance Joseph right now is the heavy favorite due to his previous ties to the organization and strong relationship with the ownership, okay? And again, it's not just the compilation we put together. It's also over on Bet Online, the odds are saying Vance Joseph minus 160 to get the job. He's got the best betting odds. Then it's Sean McDermott. Then it's Joe Brady, okay? And then it gets to be quite the reach there, right? With Mike LaFleur actually down there at plus 1,000. So top choice, Vance Joseph. Second choice, and I got to be honest with you guys, if I was looking for a head coach, I believe Clint Kubiak would be my guy, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Top choice if the team decides to prioritize Kyler Murray's offensive development, if Kyler Murray's even going to be there, right? Who knows? So Clint Kubiak second. And then according to this, although Sean McDermott's second in the betting odds, according to Bet Online, Brian Daboll, former head coach of the Giants, he's gaining steam as a reclamation project specialist for quarterbacks. So obviously he is a kind of a quarterback guru, if you were supposed to be anyway. Who knows if he actually is. But he is nowhere near the top in terms of Bet Online and the betting odds. However, it did mention his name. So once again, Vance Joseph, if he gets the head coaching job in Arizona, then that means Jim Leonhard might be promoted to DC. If he's not promoted to DC, then Jim Leonhard's still on the table. We'll find out if Matt LaFleur is truly interested in Jim Leonhard, former Wisconsin Badger great, as soon as the Denver Broncos get eliminated. If they do this week by the Patriots, that's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the Patriots so we can get Denver out of there and see how many of these Denver coaches that Matt LaFleur might be interested in interviewing as well, right? So keep that in mind when it comes to Vance Joseph potentially going to Arizona, therefore having a trickle-down effect with Jim Leonhard. Let's move on to the second team here, Baltimore Ravens. Following the seismic firing of John Harbaugh, the Ravens are looking for a modern approach to maximize Lamar Jackson's window. Leading candidate, or one of the three leading candidates, Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator for the Chargers. There's nobody in the Chargers organization that we find ourselves going, man, we really like him, right? So this doesn't have a whole lot of effect on us. We'll blow right through it. It's Jesse Minter. He's the current betting favorite. His ties to the Harbaugh family and defensive success make him a natural fit. Then you got Clint Kubiak, OC from the Seahawks. Then you got Anthony Weaver from the defensive coordinator from the Dolphins. So it sounds like Jeff Hafley goes to Miami Dolphins. As of right now, Anthony Weaver is going to stay the DC with the Dolphins. Okay. So if he were to get the head coaching job with Baltimore, right? And again, it's probably a bit of a long shot, but if that happens, that's going to trigger Jeff Hafley to try to poach from our organization to get his next DC if he's got somebody there, whether it's Derek Ansley or DeMarcus Covington. So what are we rooting for here, guys? We're rooting that Anthony Weaver stays the DC with the Dolphins, right? Because if he gets a head coaching job somewhere, that's going to trigger a little bit of poaching. Now you may be going, but hold up, Clayton. Let's hope that he does poach from our organization, and then we can hire Anthony Weaver. There's a slight chance that they could move on from Anthony Weaver as the defensive coordinator. I mean, I imagine Jeff Hafley could make that decision if he wanted to, but as it sits right now, I feel like it's highly unlikely they're going to move on from him. And again, if he gets, a head coaching job somewhere else, obviously he's not going to be available for us, right? So just keep in mind Anthony Weaver having a little bit of effect on our defensive coaching room. Next, the Buffalo Bills. With the firing of Sean McDermott following a divisional round exit, Buffalo is the jewel of the remaining openings. And I agree with that. I think you got a rabid fan base. You got a brand new stadium getting open. A lot of buzz around that. You got a great quarterback in Josh Allen, although he did crap the bed in that playoff game. I'm not going to be fake about it. You can't carry that ball like a loaf of bread. I know you get cocky because you feel like Superman out there and you're running over DBs and everything, but man, and I hated to see his reaction after the game too. That was tough to watch, seeing how, and he took full responsibility, full blame for it. It wasn't all his fault, obviously, but the turnovers are a problem. Still, that is the jewel right now of head coaching stops for sure. So Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills, is kind of the leading candidate. that they may want to just promote him to head coach and kind of keep things rolling. If you do that, you're truly saying Sean McDermott was the problem, right? And I think they're pretty much saying that out loud. They're not trying to hide it. There's a big rift between Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills ownership at the time being. So really, really interested how all that's kind of fallen into place. So the internal favorite to provide continuity for MVP Josh Allen, he's already completed multiple interviews. All right. Next on the list, Brian Daboll, former head coach for the Giants. Fans and odd makers are high on a reunion between Daboll and Allen to recapture their previous offensive dominance. Obviously, Brian Daboll had been there before. If I remember correctly, he was the offensive coordinator, and he was kind of credited with bringing Josh Allen along, kind of molding him into the quarterback he is. He went to the Giants to try to do the same thing with, I think, Danny Dimes, and then obviously them moving on from him to other quarterbacks. So keep an eye on Brian Daboll. And then Davis Webb, quarterback coach for the Broncos. None of this really has any bearing on us, right? So we'll keep it moving. Again, just a quick update there. Cleveland Browns. Browns are looking for a coach who could stabilize the quarterback situation and build on a talented young roster. The early favorite here, or one of the early favorites, I should say, one of three, Grant Udinski, the offensive coordinator for the Jaguars. That'd be great for us. That doesn't affect defense at all, right? Let them do that. Let them hire him. Next on the list is Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Browns, the top internal candidate if the Browns choose to maintain their elite defensive identity. So the Browns could just promote Jim Schwartz, the head coach. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And then go get a great young mind, right, to come in and be your OC. That makes a lot of sense to me if I'm Cleveland. However, if Cleveland decides to go with Grant Udinski and try to keep Jim Schwartz on, will Jim Schwartz get a head coaching job somewhere else? He's not mentioned anywhere. So it sounds like Jim Schwartz is not a hot commodity to be a head coach. My guess is that great defensive mind will stay in Cleveland where that dumpster fire is. Mike McDaniel, former head coach of the Dolphins. Keep in mind, Mike McDaniel, much like Brian Flores, has kind of agreed to a deal with the LA Chargers to be their offensive coordinator. However, he can still get a head coaching job. He's been linked to this. Odd makers have placed him high on the list as a genius hire to fix the offensive woes in Cleveland. Could you imagine Mike McDaniel being the defense or being the head coach and Jim Schwartz being the defensive coordinator? I want to see it because Mike McDaniel's so damn quirky. He's so odd. He kind of brings a youthfulness to it. Watching Jim Schwartz, see him walk in with his ankle showing in those joggers would be absolutely hilarious to me. Kind of hoping that happens. But again, when you look at the defensive landscape here for us, the Browns' job really doesn't have any bearing unless the new head coach come in and surprise everybody and fire Jim Schwartz. Then Jim Schwartz goes to the top of our potential DC list, right? Bill Belichick disciple, came up through the ranks. I think he was in Cleveland with Bill way back in the day, followed him around. They had a lot of success together. That would be one I'd be very interested in. I just don't see the Browns letting go of him. I imagine whoever the Haslam family hires as their head coach would tell them right off the bat in the interviewing process, Jim Schwartz is to not be touched. He is a made man here in Cleveland. I imagine that's what would happen there. All right, next on the list are the Las Vegas Raiders. After the Pete Carroll experiment ended quickly, the Raiders are reportedly looking for grit and a long-term culture builder. Leading the way, Brian Flores, DC from the Vikings, the betting favorite to bring a disciplined, hard-nosed defensive identity back to Vegas. Guys, Brian Flores in black and silver, yeah, with Fernando Mendoza as the quarterback. And I think they've got the number one pick. You guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. I believe they've got the number one pick. They draft Fernando Mendoza, bring in a young offensive mind to coach him up. Maybe somebody who was a quarterback coach somewhere else. Maybe like Davis Webb, right? It shows they're interested in Davis Webb as the potential coach as well, linked to the Raiders due to his ties with GM John Spytek. So, he's just the quarterback's coach unless Denver would plan on promoting him somehow, some way to OC and firing an OC. Maybe they don't have an OC. I don't know. Maybe they can block that. But could you imagine Brian Flores getting the head coaching job, then them hiring Davis Webb as the QB or as the new offensive coordinator, and then drafting Fernando Mendoza number one? That'd be a fun little side project for us to watch here at PTA. That would be really, really interesting. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, is also in the running there as well. So Brian Flores, leading candidate. Let's back up. How does this affect the Green Bay Packers? We interviewed Devontae Jones, their defensive passing game coordinator. So if Brian Flores gets a head coaching job with the Raiders, then that means the Minnesota Vikings will probably try to promote Devontae Jones to defensive coordinator. Therefore, that would block us from hiring him they would kind of have first dibs. Obviously, the guy, if they're willing to give him the same amount of money for the same title, he's not going to pack up his bags and leave, right? That's just that's the way that kind of goes there. So that could come into play here for Durante Jones. Now, here's the other thing too. We interview for Durante Jones, right? There could be a bidding war on his services. Now, the fact that he was not their DC, I don't think they can technically block him. But again, if they're willing to give him equal or more money, he would probably want to stay in Minnesota, where his family already is, right? Now, with that being said, let's say that can't happen. They can't block anybody from getting him just by a simple promotion, right? Then Brian Flores would probably be wanting to bring Durante Jones with him to the Raiders. You see what's happening now. It's now going to become a bidding war between three teams potentially: Minnesota, Vegas, and Green Bay. If indeed the Minnesota Vikings there's not a loophole in the rules somewhere where they could just promote him instantly and, okay, all bets are off. They get first dibs. They get to keep him, right? He'll probably choose that anyway, even if the rule doesn't apply. However, that's going to be a little bit of a bidding war too if they let him explore options there. So Durante Jones might heat up real quick if Brian Flores does get the head coaching job with the Raiders. Now, what's the betting odds? We showed here, AI pulled all the information. They said Brian Flores was kind of the leading candidate here, right? With Davis Webb and Clint Kubiak in second and third. However, when you go to Bet Online, this is one of only two bets I could find for head coaching futures in the National Football League. They're saying Clint Kubiak's number one at -110. Davis Webb's is number two at +300. And then Mike LaFleur is number three at +350. Brian Flores is all the way down to like fifth at +900. That's very interesting to me. So maybe inside, and again, Vegas knows what the hell they're doing, guys. Not Vegas the team, Vegas the betting system, right? When I say Vegas, I'm talking about gambling as a whole. You got to really focus on some of the favorites. They know what they're doing in maneuvering these favorites. Maybe they want to go offensive minded. Tom Brady is on that board of owners, right? So he's probably looking at this from a different perspective, going, hey, we need to hire an offensive coach if he's got a bunch of say, which I think we would all agree he probably does. My choice, if I was running the Raiders, you guys know I like offensive-minded coaches over defensive-minded coaches for the head coach position. I would go with Clint Kubiak is what I would do. I would go Clint Kubiak, and I might try to go get somebody like Davis Webb to be my OC, right? And then hire a great young defensive mind. But keep in mind, if they don't go with Brian Flores there, let's say they go Clint Kubiak in that regard, they're going to have to go find a defensive coordinator. Now the market got even more flooded with more holes, right? So that's going to kind of hurt Green Bay's chances of getting or winning a bidding war with one of these potential DCs. So Christian Parker is the name that's not getting brought up much. You notice that? Now, he'll be a hot commodity too as well, I'm sure. He's already interviewed with Dallas and several other teams, but you notice Christian Parker isn't being mentioned for anything here, right? So just keep that in mind. And last on the list of the 6 teams that's got vacancies are the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Steelers are hiring. They're expected to stick to their traditional values of stability. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams, seems to be one of the top choices. Currently, the odds-on favorite. He's a young, defensive-minded coach who fits the historical Steelers type. That seems to be what the Rooney family's always wanted, as a defensive-minded coach. Defense, for when you think Steelers, I always think defense and running game. Got a little bit away from that with Big Ben, but I could see that being the case. Another great fit, Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Vikings. So you got 2 teams, the Raiders and the Steelers, potentially trying to outbid each other for Brian Flores. I think he's interviewed with both, if I remember correctly. Chris Shula, that other name to keep in mind. So if Chris Shula ends up getting a head coaching job, guess what happens now? Defensive coordinator vacancy with the Rams and Sean McVay. Sean McVay probably going to go hire Raheem Morris again, I would imagine. Him and Raheem are real close. So Raheem Morris is on the list of potential defensive coordinators for the Green Bay Packers as well, because he's got ties to Matt LaFleur through the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree, okay? Now, Mike McCarthy, there's nothing I would want more, guys. Hear me out here. And we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is coming back. We don't know if Pittsburgh ownership wants Aaron back. I imagine they would. Who knows? Could you imagine Mike McCarthy getting the head coaching job at the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers coming back for a final year to try to win the whole damn thing? I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty exciting to me. And you got to make a decision. Defense, I don't know who their DC is right now. He hasn't been mentioned in any coaching carousels to the best of my knowledge. But how fun would that be? Mike McCarthy in his hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, with his Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. That would be absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So, yeah, there you go. That's the full coaching carousel that we're looking at right now. Again, 6 vacancies. You got the Cardinals, Ravens, Bills, Raiders, Browns, and Steelers. About 3 or 4 of those teams, whichever direction they go, is really going to affect our defensive coordinator search. It's going to be very interesting. Here's the other thing, too. Who knows? Maybe a team pops up and says, hey, we want to interview Sean Mannion for our OC spot, the Packers quarterback coach. Mike Vrabel. There was a little bit of rumors that Mike Vrabel, our receiver coach, and I think he might be our passing game coordinator as well. I haven't looked at that in a while. Mike Vrabel may end up going to Miami with Jeff Hafley. If that happens, imagine this. Imagine if Jeff Hafley hires Jason Vrabel as his offensive coordinator, our receiver coach, passing game coordinator. You guys double check me on that. I thought that was the title he had. I could be wrong. Imagine he does that. They sign Malik Willis in free agency. They sign Romeo Doubs in free agency. And you got a little Green Bay Southeast, man. I love it. I love it. I just love this time of year, man. There's optimism for the Packers' new season, right? There's a lot of all this just news breaking constantly with the coaching carousel. We've got the draft board built. You got a new link. Shout out to Emilio for posting a link for me in there. I spent about 3 hours yesterday putting data into the draft board. The draft board came alive. So you're now going to see all of the PFF grades that had rankings. Okay, not. We may go back and fine tune that and put even more information in, but they have to have a minimal amount of snaps for it to actually rank them. We've got the 2023 PFF college grades, 2024 PFF college grades, 2025 PFF college grades, all put right into the draft board, and it's all factoring into the final grade that we give. We got the PFF big board, and you're going, why are you doing it now, Clayton? It's early. I want the earliest information as soon as the college football season ends, because what's going to happen is insiders are going to start hyping certain guys because they got ties to the university. This guy's going to blow up because this guy's going to – I want to know how everyone felt when college football was fresh on their mind. So we got the consensus big board data going in. I got to finish that today if I get time. So that's going into the draft board as well. There's a ton of information that's going to continue to go in. And then, of course, coming up, we've got the college all-star games, right? You got the Senior Bowl. You got the East-West Shrine Bowl. We're going to be getting insiders saying, hey, here are my top 10 performers all week in practice as well as the game, how they perform. We'll get those bonuses put in. And now we're waiting on the combine. Everything's going to happen in rapid fashion. In the meantime, do the Packers restructure contracts? Do they cut people? Do they sign free agents? All that stuff's going to come into play. This stuff is going to heat up so fast. I see other content creators, and they're kind of slowing down. There ain't much to talk about. No new news today. I'm over here going, boy, I'm really straining my marriage trying to find the time to go live because I need to talk about this, and this. I got 6 other topics we could have talked about right now. So it's a fun time of year, man. It's going to be an absolute blast. I hope you guys and gals are here for every step of the way. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about that coaching carousel trickle down? Who do you want the Packers to hire as their DC? What do you see as the best perfect scenario that you want to see unfold for the Packers to get the right person for the job? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. I got to go stack some firewood. We got a winter storm coming. They're saying we're either going to get an inch of ice or we're going to get 2 feet of snow. So your boy got to get some firewood in the dry. So that's what I'm going to get into right now. Thank y'all so much for jumping in here early. We had a huge crowd, man, over 400 people watching. Appreciate y'all. Do me a favor, if you're watching on X, click on my profile, go to our YouTube channel. You can actually see the entire conversation on YouTube. There's a bunch of people in here commenting, having a good time, talking ball constantly. The chat is way more valuable in here with these live streams than the information that this knucklehead talking provide you. So make sure you jump over here, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon. Appreciate everybody. I see all the regulars in here. Packer Doug, I see Murph in the house. We got Chester Marco, Mike Berry, everybody in here, man. Nick McSwain, way too many to mention. Thank y'all so much for jumping in here. Greg Taylor, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, Ari Ironminer, too old for this. Everybody. I think I seen Bates in here earlier. He's probably doing more important things now, but really, really appreciate everybody jumping in. We will be back as news breaks. I may come in with some wood chips on me, but we'll get it done for you. All right. So we'll see you guys here this afternoon for another live stream as soon as anything breaks. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go Pack, go.
There we go.
Bye, guys.